For 2 decades, Johnny and his wife Binta lived in a modest riverside house in the quiet town of Fayu. Though they had been married for many years, their home echoed with silence, no baby laughter, no playful cries, just the endless sound of the river behind them. Each dawn, when the sky was still a pale shade of blue, Binta would slowly walk to the water's edge, kneel, gently place her hand on her belly, and whisper with soft sorrow, "O gods of the land, grant me just one child before I leave this world." She repeated this plea daily, rain or shine, her tone tender but drenched in anguish. Johnny would watch from a distance, no longer praying, only sighing like an exhausted breeze. The townspeople began to gossip. "Her womb is locked with chains," some murmured, while others claimed, "It's Johnny, he probably eats his children in dreams." But the couple said nothing. They visited hospitals endlessly. Every test returned normal results. Doctors were puzzled. Desperate, they turned to prayer houses. Prophets doused Binta's belly with oils, laid hands on her head, and screamed, "Receive your child," until she collapsed like a dry banana leaf, only to wake with migraines and nothing more. Still barren, they sought help from a native doctor whose voice thundered and whose beard swayed like a broom. He handed them bitter concoctions, claiming, "This one opened a womb as dry as dust." They drank the potions, their mouths twisting in disgust. But still, Binta's belly remained flat like river stones. Next came midnight rituals, bathing in the river, walking backward, chanting eerie words under the silent moon. They were told to sow a seed. Johnny sold his only motorcycle, his lifeline, for selling firewood. "Surely God will honor our pain," he assured Binta. She began dry fasting, no food, no water for 14 days. Her hands trembled, lips cracked, yet she persisted, whispering, "Maybe this is what God wants." The years passed, and their suffering grew like wild grass in the rains. In their 15th year, they encountered a spiritual man whose flowing robes swept the dust. He looked into Binta's eyes and said, "Only by laying with me will you bear a child. It is divine law." Binta's eyes widened in horror. She fell to the ground, sobbing like a newborn. "No, I will never." That night, she clung to Johnny in silence as they sat by the river, listening to frogs croak. The next morning, they quietly packed and left. No more doctors, no more prophets, no more hope from others. They built a humble new home near the river, away from people, noise, and shame, just the two of them, living with quiet, grief, and flickering faith. In the town of Akinzi, a vibrant girl named Amanda lived. Her skin glowed like morning sun, her hair flowed like palm fronds. When Amanda strolled through the village, even animals paused. Boys stared, men whispered, and her friends often teased. "Amanda, you're too fine. If I looked like you, I'd marry a president." Market strangers remarked, "She's too pretty for this place, she belongs in the city." Her parents adored her, her mother cooked her favorites, her father gave her everything. Yet Amanda felt confined. When asked to sweep or fetch water, she scoffed, "Am I a maid?" She craved freedom to dress, act, and move as she pleased. But her home had boundaries. One evening, after overhearing her parents gently discussing her, Amanda's heart hardened. That night, while the house slept, she packed a small bag, clothes, a mirror, and cream, left a note at the door, and vanished. "I've gone to find a better life. Don't search for me." By dawn, her parents found the note. They screamed. They ran the streets shouting her name, but Amanda was going to vanish like smoke. She walked for miles until her legs ached, finally arriving in a new town where no one knew her, but her beauty spoke louder than words. Heads turned wherever she went. Men stared, women gossiped. She found a small but neat room. With her new independence, she wore short skirts, tight dresses, painted lips, and perfumes that scented the air. No one told her what to do, no chores, no scolding. She slept when she wanted, woke when she pleased, made stylish friends who partied, painted nails, and posed for pictures by the road. "Now I'm truly free." She smiled at her reflection in a car window one evening, but fate had other plans. One afternoon, as she passed a grand mansion, a wealthy man dressed in white with a heavy gold chain spotted her. His name was Chief Oduma, and that gaze marked a turning point. Chief Oduma wasn't just rich, he was overflowing with wealth. His mansions gleamed, his cars sparkled, and his compound buzzed with workers. Yet he had a sorrow. Though he had 4 wives and 7 daughters, he had no son. It haunted him daily. "What's all this wealth for if I have no heir?" he'd lament from his throne-like chair. His wives had tried fasting prayers, prophesied, but sons never came. Then he saw Amanda again, her waist swaying, skin radiant. "Who is that girl?" he asked his driver. "Don't know, sir," he replied. "Find out," the chief ordered. Within weeks, Amanda entered his mansion wrapped in red face, glowing with pride and makeup. "Fine girl," Oduma said. "Big man," she grinned back. He lavished her with gold, cash, and luxury beyond her dreams. Like she was the only woman alive, he looked deep into her eyes and said, "I want you to be my wife." Amanda's eyes widened in surprise. "Wife? Like real wife?" she asked, stunned. "Yes," he replied firmly, "the one who will give me what others could not." Amanda smiled sweetly, leaned close to his ear. and whispered in a voice soft like wind on brittle leaves, "I will give you a son, my lord." That very night, the traditional marriage was celebrated. There was drumming, dancing, laughter, and a stream of guests bearing gifts. When Amanda finally entered Chief Oduma's mansion, the other wives watched silently, saying nothing, but their eyes spoke volumes. They saw how the chief smiled only for her, how he treated her like royalty. Her bedsheets were changed daily, her room filled with the scent of rosewater and reverence. Each morning, Chief Oduma would place his hand on her belly and say with joy, "My queen, my son is near." And just like that, Amanda became the favored wife. One early morning before the roosters crowed, Amanda rushed to the toilet, vomiting uncontrollably. Her legs wobbled, her heart raced, and as she held her stomach, a smile lit her face. It had finally happened. The maids hurried to fetch Chief Oduma. "Sir, madam is unwell." Without hesitation, he leapt from bed like an excited boy. "What does she need? Is she all right?" When the doctor arrived and examined her, he smiled and said, "Congratulations, sir. She is expecting." Overwhelmed with joy, Chief Oduma clapped his hands and danced in the courtyard, shouting, "My son is coming." He summoned drummers and cooks, ordering the house to celebrate. From that day, Amanda's life became a dream. She no longer walked, she was carried. Her meals were freshly prepared every 2 hours: chicken pepper soup, soft yam, pineapple water, anything she desired. Her room was cleaned 3 times a day. Even her bath water was warm and perfumed. The other wives watched from the shadows, their eyes sharp with envy, their smiles stiff and forced. They whispered among themselves, bitterness choking their voices. "So, now she gets everything just because she's pregnant. Let's wait and see what she delivers." But Amanda ignored them. Whenever Chief Oduma touched her belly, she would beam and whisper, "My son is kicking." And the chief would close his eyes, nodding, "Yes, my heir is strong." Word spread quickly. Amanda had done what the others could not. She was now seen as a miracle, the chosen one. Amanda often stood before her mirror, gently rubbing her belly, whispering to the unborn child, "You better be a boy. If you dare come as a useless girl, I won't forgive you." Her conviction was total. She wasn't just bearing a child, she was carrying a throne. Then, on a quiet night under the full moon, Amanda's screams shattered the stillness. "It's coming, it's coming," she cried out. The midwives rushed in, armed with cloths and herbal potions, while Chief Oduma paced outside, frantic and restless. Inside, Amanda's sweat poured like rain. Her hands clutched the mat, her cries echoed off the walls. Finally, the baby arrived. The room fell silent. Then came the soft mewling of a newborn. One midwife looked down and her expression changed. Another leaned in and frowned. They cleaned the baby gently and whispered, "It's a girl." Amanda sat upright, panic flooding her face. No, check again. That can't be right." But the midwife shook her head. "Madam, it's a baby girl." Amanda's smile vanished. Her face hardened. "I promised him a boy," she muttered. "I told him I would give him a son." With trembling hands, she took the baby. The child blinked innocently, her fingers tiny, her skin tender. But Amanda couldn't smile, couldn't say thank God. Then she asked the unthinkable. "A poor woman gave birth tonight. Behind the compound I heard she had a boy. Please, let's switch. Take my girl. Give me her boy. Help me, please." The midwives were stunned. One of them replied softly, "We don't trade children, madame. This is your daughter. Carry her." Amanda looked down at the baby. The girl yawned gently, oblivious to the storm around her. But Amanda's heart was not calm. She had given birth, but not to the child she wanted. That night, when the compound had slept and the drums were silent, Amanda crept outside with the baby wrapped in soft cloth. The child's eyes were shut, her breathing calm and shallow like early morning mist. Amanda didn't cradle her like a mother, she held her like a burden, a secret. The compound was eerily quiet, even the dogs stayed silent. Frogs croaked faintly in the bush, and the river flowed steadily, wide and dark. Amanda reached the riverbank, her feet sinking into the cold mud. The baby began to whimper, not loud, just a soft, sad cry like she sensed something wrong. Amanda looked down. The child's face was flawless, her mouth opening slightly, seeking comfort. Amanda spoke in a flat voice, "I cannot raise a girl. A girl is useless, she brings only shame. I promised him a prince, not this." Then with no more hesitation she flung the child. A splash echoed. The river didn't resist, it accepted. The baby without sound. The cloth floated briefly, then sank into the dark water. Amanda wiped her hands on her wrapper, emotionless. No tears, no regret, just stillness. She returned to the house slowly, like someone coming back from the market. But her mind was racing. What if he checks? What if they ask? She stopped by the kitchen, grabbed a cloth, dipped it in water and rubbed it on her chest and thighs. Then she entered the bedroom. Chief Oduma sat up, eyes swollen with sleep but glowing with hope. "My queen, is it a boy?" he asked, voice trembling. Amanda paused, touched her belly as though the child was still there, and let out a choked sob. She sat on the bed, covered her face with her hands, and whispered, "It was a boy." Her voice cracked as she sniffed and released a single tear. Chief Oduma's heart leaped. A boy? Then where is he? What happened? Amanda turned away, her body shaking slightly. "He died," she murmured. As soon as he came out, he didn't even cry long, he just went silent. She buried her face again and wept. With tears that were loud but not real, Amanda cried out dramatically, loud enough to sound convincing, and Chief Oduma's mouth dropped open in shock. He clutched his chest, then her trembling hand, never once doubting her, never asking for proof. He simply believed her. His voice was soft and cracked with grief as he whispered, "The gods give and the gods take away," then pulled her into a tight embrace, assuring her, "We will try again, my queen. You gave me hope once. You will give me hope again." Amanda closed her eyes and rested her head on his chest. But her heart was a storm of guilt and fear, for she knew the truth: she hadn't buried a son. She had buried her shame, but what she didn't know was that the gods had seen it all. And the river that night was not asleep. The river flowed quietly but deliberately, carrying with it a secret, and in the stillness of the night, wrapped in soaked cloth, the baby floated gently, her small arms stirring and her soft cries no louder than the wind rustling through dry grass. The river didn't let her sink. Instead, it cradled her like a loving mother with her child on her back, carrying her past whispering trees, silent farms, and sleepy houses, while the stars blinked above and the wind hummed along with the water, urging her onward with a soft chant, "Go." Just before dawn broke, the river reached Fayou town, and Binta and Johnny were already outside their modest home, restless, unable to sleep through the eerie stillness. Suddenly a faint cry reached their ears, and they froze in place. "Did you hear that?" Johnny asked, and Binta, already standing, gasped, "That's a baby." They ran barefoot to the riverside, hearts thudding wildly, and there at the edge, caught between two sticks, lay the baby, soaked, cold, and crying. Binta scooped her up and held her tightly to her chest, and the baby quieted, her eyelids fluttering as if sensing safety at last. Tears streamed down Binta's cheeks as she whispered, "God has remembered me. After all these years, he has answered." Johnny knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he gently touched the baby's soft cheek, murmuring, "She's beautiful." They took her home, wrapped her in warmth, boiled water, and fed her with gentle care. As the sun rose, Binta looked at her husband and said, "We will name her Osinachi, the child we waited for." And from that day forward, Osinachi became their daughter, once given to the river, now returned by love. Time moved like the river itself, steady, quiet, and full of mystery, and Osinachi grew tall and graceful, smart and kind, her laughter as joyful as birdsong, her smile tender like morning dew. Binta and Johnny raised her with the purest form of love, the kind that shields you like a soft blanket in a storm. She fetched water, swept the compound, helped in the kitchen, always cheerful, always grateful. "Thank you, Mama," she'd say with a smile. "Yes, Papa," she'd reply without question. Every morning before sunrise, she knelt beside the firewood to pray, whispering, "God, let me be a blessing to others." Everyone in the village loved her. At the local health center, she helped nurses with kindness and care, cleaning wounds, feeding the weak, singing to crying children. Even the sick smiled when she touched them. "She has mercy in her hands," they'd say, calling her Osinachi the gentle. Crops near her home thrived more than any others. "Maybe it's her spirit," said the farmers. "She brings peace." Children followed her like chicks after a mother hen. Old women blessed her in passing, and while many boys admired her, none dared approach. Her light was too pure, too sacred. But Osinachi never knew the truth of her past. She believed she was a simple girl from Fayou, the only child of Johnny and Binta, unaware that her name had once been discarded like a forgotten story. Still, the truth cannot hide forever, and one day it would rise like the sun. Far away in Ikenzi, in the once glorious house of Chief Oduma, change had begun. One morning, the maids knocked on his door, "Chief, Chief," but no answer came. They pushed it open to find him lying still, eyes shut, hands resting on his chest. Chief Oduma had died in his sleep. No cries, no wails, only silence. His greedy brothers arrived like vultures, dividing his lands, his wealth, and his legacy. One by one, the wives left their bags packed like birds, leaving a dying tree. Amanda was the last to remain. Her daughters, now grown and married, lived far away and only sent the occasional letter, never visiting, never calling. Amanda sat alone in the enormous house, once filled with pride and luxury, now silent and crumbling. Dust smothered the chairs, cobwebs swung from the ceilings, and the mirrors had lost their shine. Then came the strange noises on full moon nights. Amanda would wake to the sound of a baby crying, but there was no baby. She'd sit up, drenched in sweat, whispering, "Who's there?" But only the cry soft sorrowful said. Her body began to betray her. Dark patches marked her skin, rashes itched her fingers, her lips cracked like dry land. She visited countless doctors in the city, the village, even roadside healers, but none could explain the illness. "Madame, we don't understand," they all said. She drank potions, fasted, prayed, but her body continued to decay, her bones weakening, her breath growing shorter. One night, as she stared into a dusty mirror, she asked, "What is happening to me?" But the mirror stayed silent. The only response was a distant baby's wail and the soft gurgle of a river that remembers. One slow, windless evening, Amanda sat hunched in her room, skin crawling, chest tight. A single lantern flickered beside her. She had not eaten. Her hands trembled, then a sudden knock at the door. She jumped. "Who's there?" she called weakly. Silence, then again knock, knock, knock. She opened the door cautiously, and there stood a strange woman dressed in white, eyes sharp as knives, feet bare despite the dry road. She seemed like someone born of mist. Her voice, though quiet, filled the room with authority. "You are dying," she said plainly. Amanda's legs weakened. "Who are you? What do you mean?" she asked. The woman stepped forward, eyes burning. "The river remembers. What you threw away still lives. She is the only one who can save you." Amanda opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The woman continued, "You have until the next new moon. If she does not forgive you, you will die." Then, without waiting for a reply, she turned and disappeared into the dark. Amanda rushed after her, crying, "Wait, please, who are you?" But the night gave no answer, no footsteps, no shadow, only silence, only the river. In the still of night, a whisper echoed faintly, "Find her before it is too late." And by morning, even before the first rooster crowed, Amanda tied an old scarf around her head, packed a small bag, and stepped out of the house with a desperate mission. Inside that bag was the only thing she had kept from the night she gave away her child, the tiny charm bracelet tied with red thread and cowries that once adorned the baby's ankle. Her face was weary, her skin dry, her body frail, but her heart pounded with determination. "I must find her," she murmured. "I must live." So she walked through one town, then another, then a third, knocking on doors, asking everyone she met, "Do you know a girl from the river? Do you recognize this bracelet?" But many slammed doors in her face. Some cursed her as mad. One even hurled water at her and shouted, "Leave," which boat she collapsed from exhaustion more than once, fainting on dusty roads. Strangers offered her water. A kind woman gave her bread. But Amanda's body was fading, her feet swelling, her eyes red, her breathing shallow. Still, she pressed on, through rain and burning sun, along narrow bush paths and endless dry roads. Her slippers tore, her voice grew hoarse, and each night she counted the days with small stones. 1, 2, 3. With only 6 days left before the new moon, she finally arrived in Fayou. As she entered the town, the breeze touched her skin, and the nearby river hummed softly, as if it remembered. Amanda paused, whispering with trembling lips, "This place feels familiar," but the river gave no reply, only continued to flow silently, watching. That afternoon, the town of Fayou was alive with celebration. Drums beat joyfully. Children ran laughing, women ululated, banners waved in the air, and the people cheered off Tanachi. She had been accepted to study medicine in Lagos, and the whole village rejoiced for the girl they loved, the girl of light, the miracle child from the river. Osinachi stood glowing in the middle of the square, her hair braided neatly, her white gown shining like morning sunlight. As she danced, her anklet jingled, the same charm bracelet from long ago catching the sun. Just then, Amanda stepped into the square, dusty, weary, her wrapper torn and her lips cracked like dry soil. Her eyes locked onto the bracelet, and her breath caught. Her legs trembled, her heart pounded, her chest heaved. "It cannot be," she gasped, and dropped to her knees. She hit the ground hard, her head bowed, but she didn't stop. She began to crawl. Onlookers stared in confusion and concern. Who is she? Where did she come from? Is she mad? But Amanda didn't care. Her finger pointed toward Osinachi, her voice weak and shaking. "My child, my daughter, please, I'm dying." Osinachi paused in her dance and turned. A smile faded. Her eyes met Amanda's, and for the first time her heart stirred with an unfamiliar ache. The music stopped. The crowd fell silent. Even the birds seemed to hush. Amanda, covered in dust and tears, stretched out her trembling hands, pleading, and began to speak, voice cracking like burning wood. "I gave birth. Years ago I promised him a son." Her chest rose and fell with agony, and the crowd leaned in. "But it was a girl, and I walked to the river, and I threw her in." Gasps filled the air. A woman covered her mouth. A man stepped back in horror. Amanda whispered, You are that baby. The river spared you. It gave you to someone else. You lived. You became light, and I am dying." Her voice broke. "They said only your blessing can save me. Please, before the new moon. I don't want to die." The silence in the square was like a tomb. Behind Osinachi stood Binta and Johnny, calm but unwavering. Villagers stepped forward, trying to block Amanda from Osinachi. "Don't go near her, she's wicked," the woman warned. But Binta raised her hand and nodded softly, like a mother giving silent permission for a child to make her own choice. Osinachi's eyes filled with tears, and the air itself grew thick with emotion. She walked slowly to the woman on the ground, hands shaking, lips pressed tightly, her soul in turmoil. Standing before Amanda, she spoke in a voice soft yet strong. "You tried to end me." Amanda lifted her face, streaked with dust and pain. "But God preserved me," Osinachi continued. The villagers stood frozen, unable to look away. Amanda cried harder, "Please, just bless me. I don't want to die." Osinachi knelt gently and placed her hand on Amanda's head. Her fingers trembled, her eyes glistened. "I forgive you," she whispered, her voice splintering like shattered glass. "Let heaven hear it, let the earth witness it." Then she rose and turned toward the river, her voice barely audible. "But your peace, it's not from me alone. Go and ask the river if it, too, has forgiven you." The breeze returned in that moment, soft but certain. Amanda knelt still, her shoulders no longer shaking. Her breath steadied, her pale skin began to warm, color returned to her cheeks, and her hands stopped trembling. She gazed at Osin with eyes full of peace and disbelief. But Osinachi turned away. She had given her blessing, but not her heart. She did not smile. She did not look back, because some wounds, no matter how deep the forgiveness, only God can heal. And the lesson, whispered through the village like a breeze through leaves: the child you abandoned may be the one who saves your life. Life never forgets. Forgiveness is powerful, but it cannot erase the memory of cruelty. If you enjoyed this tale, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell for more unforgettable stories like this one. Goodbye.